Welcome to Real Insight. Mark O'Connor, CEO of Steinway Galleries Australia. We've been mates for about 12, 15, 16
Taking me back now, I don't
years.
know, depends on
Late
what
2000s.
year you're talking about
Yeah.
starting, but, yeah, we obviously worked together in the same company with different roles, but always had interaction, and that was always, amicable,
And
and
novel, and somewhat
yeah.
novel at times.
Yeah, well, look, Steinway back then, even when I was involved through those early years with the Allans Group, was always a separate entity,
Yeah.
from really everything else, and that's why I guess even with the group that we worked for, which was the Brackenbury Group, that I was an anomaly in that whole
Yeah,
situation.
that's right. It was because you were never like front and center all the time. You're always off doing other things, which turned out to be selling pianos, which apparently you're pretty bloody good at. Tell us about, because listeners might not know about Steinway. I think before we jump into all the bits and pieces, tell us about Steinway, because if you're in music, you know Steinway and you know it to be possibly the greatest piano ever built. But for people that don't know about Steinway, tell us a bit about Steinway.
Well, look, it's a long story, but going back to the first Steinway that was ever built was 1836. That Mr. Steinway built in his kitchen in Germany, and they called it the kitchen Steinway. And funnily enough, they did a replica of it some years back, and it did a tour around the world. It was called the Kitchen Piano, but that was the starting point. So, and then of course the company went over to fast forward years later when they started Steinway as a business, and the original surname was Steinweg, W-E-G,
Ah,
and then he went into America to start the Steinway company and figured that Steinway was a better name than Steinweg and would be more accepted. And that's where Steinway began.
mm.
And then later on went into Germany. So those two factories still exist today. And we consider them the best pianos in the world. We're not alone because it's at the moment, it's like 95% of the major concert halls around the world have to have new Steinway pianos in order to attract the best pianists and the best musicians to come to those venues and perform on the pianos.
And are they still, because the thing about Steinway was that they're in the premium ranges, particularly, they're all hand built. Is that still the situation, or are there models that are and models that aren't?
Yeah, well, Steinway and Sons pianos as such are handmade in the two factories, Hamburg and the New York factory. Then we've got other brands that are Steinway brands, but they're the entry level, if you like, from Essex, which are designed by Steinway and made in the Chinese factory in Pearl River. But so, of course, the pianos are handmade in both factories, the Steinway pianos. But then you've got the Essex and the Boston. So Boston have been designed by Steinway and made in Japan since the early 90s. And they remodeled them some years ago based on the Steinway design. When they were first released, they were based on a design by Steinway, but not necessarily the actual Steinway design, if that makes sense. And then they redesigned them, which they're fantastic pianos today. They've got continuous rim, the soundboard and things like that, and action differences that have been now enhanced to be more like a Steinway. And, you've got schools like the University of Melbourne that have tried them over many years, and now that's all they have for the students to practice on is the Bostons. And then on the concert stage, you've got the handmade Steinways.
Mm.
Um, so look, it's been great association with us, and we are proud to represent the best pianos in the world. And as I said, 95% of the major concert halls around the world have Steinway pianos on the concert stage, and that's the same here in Australia. Major venues, if they don't have a Steinway, the reality is they're probably not one of the major concert venues in the
It's
country.
like you said too, because like students, particularly students that want the advantage, they want to be learning on Steinway, right? Like that's they need to be playing on Steinway in order to get to that position in their career.
Yeah, well, I think that's the attraction for venues like the University of Melbourne that can class themselves as an all Steinway school. So now, if you go to the University of Melbourne, you're only going to play on a Boston or a Steinway,
Mm.
and that's part of the image and the perception of being a world class institution.
It makes all the difference. Um, Steinway Galleries Australia is the business that you run, and that business is now 7 years old. Is that right? 17 years old.
Well, we started as an exclusive piano group,
That's right.
and that was our first store opened in Essendon in 2009. And we put a lot of different proposals to Steinway to represent the brand Australia wide, but it wasn't accepted for the first few years because it wasn't really a strategy that they approved or the people involved with Steinway at that particular time. You know, they had individual representatives in states around Australia. But the reality was we started in 2009 and we started as an exclusive piano group, new kids on the block, and we had to prove ourselves that we could run the business. And it took a few years for us to do that. And then, of course, put the proposals through to Steinway to say why we should be representing the brand Australia-wide. And for us, you know, we had the backing of Lindsay Fox and Lynn Fox to a point. But as I've said to you earlier when we were discussing this, people think, oh, Lynn Fox is involved in the piano business. Well, no, they're not. People don't understand. Someone like Lindsay has one of his favourite sayings is you can't be half pregnant, right?
Yeah.
So you can't say, well, we'll get in the piano business and I'll put Mark in charge, but we'll tell him what to do. He goes, either you trust the person to run the business or you don't go into business with the person. And that's his strategy. He's reminded me a few times over the years that he's never given us instructions on what to do or how to do it. Never. Because it's in his words, it's your business. If you stuff it up on your own, and you can't blame me or anyone else because you stuffed it up, right? So you run it. I'll fund it. That's how it works. Even the Lynn Fox management team that we work with, they're great people. They're professional people. It's predominantly the CEO of Lindsay's private group, who's a great lady, very smart. Obviously, you know, she's I think through our interaction, she probably knows more about the piano business today than many people that have been in the piano business for years, although never been involved in it, right? So just from the interactions that we have. But they never get involved in running the business. They'll never tell you what to do. They just want to know what you're doing. And I've always been happy to inform them so they know what we're doing. You know, I think communication is king in whatever you're doing. You don't want to have secrets. You've got to trust your partners. That goes both ways. So I trust them, they trust me. But the thing about Lindsay is you're in business with Lindsay and there's no question marks. You know, I've had situations where people have gone to him and said, can I talk to you about pianos, Lindsay? I've had a situation where Lindsay was at a particular function. Someone else in the piano business thought, oh, I'll go talk to Lindsay. He's involved in pianos. Maybe he'll talk to me about, maybe I could be involved. I don't know exactly what their whole idea was.
Motivations are, yeah.
All I know is that they went up to Lindsay and said, oh, Lindsay, I'm such and such. I've been involved in the piano business for a few years. Could I have a chat with you about it? Lindsay said, no. If you've got any questions about the piano business or you want to talk about pianos, you talk to Mark. You don't talk to me. And that's the sort of support and confidence from somebody that you can't get it from anyone else. I don't think than that guy, you know.
When we were chatting earlier, this is an opportunity to go back a little bit further, because when we were chatting earlier, you'd mentioned there's obviously very common themes, and I think those themes exist between the two of us. I think it's probably why we've stayed connected for so long. But the way that you operate, you know, and trust and loyalty and those things being the foundation of, you know, of how you've always done business, that was really the thing that started to let you know that here's an opportunity to work with someone that has the same core values as myself. Yeah,
look, mate, I've always had situations that have arisen where sometimes you have to make a decision on which way you're going to go for whatever that situation is. And I've always said that, you know, I say to my staff, never promise a customer or give a customer an answer to a question that, one, you're not confident or 100% confident you're giving the right answer, or promising something that you're not sure if you can deliver on it. So you've got to be 100% sure of what you're committing to, and you commit to it. So never tell a customer a lie, right? Because it'll come back and bite you, and I don't want you working for me because it's so important. And working with someone like Lindsay, you got to make sure that you're doing everything by the book and in an honest fashion. because you got to go to bed at night and sleep and go, someone's backed me 100% and trusted me 100%. It's not in my DNA to let them down, and it's not in my DNA to, try and take advantage of a situation. And then how do you sleep at night and go, well, I didn't do the right thing there. I didn't make 100% the right choice. So I never want that to be something that occurs, and it never is. And you've got to really support those that support you. That doesn't always happen down the line,
No.
But people are often interested in the background of how I got involved with
100%.
Lindsay in the business, and there's so many different stories about that. But the main one is that people like to hear about. Is an interaction that we had. So Lindsay would come into the Allans store at that stage, and we're talking at this point, we're talking about in the late 90s.
Yeah. So for the folks listening, Mark and I used to work for the Allans Music Group. That's where we first met. Pre any of the mergers or anything like that. You were there for a very long time before I got there. I started in about 2007. But yeah, you were there, as Allans was going through all its things.
Well, 1999, we were working for the Brash Group, and they fell over, went into administration. And at that time, I'd been with the company for a long time, and Peter Noske was the musical products manager.
Shout out to Pete Noske, because you gave me my first job, buddy.
Mate, still friends with Peter.
And I trained jiu-jitsu with his son. We were talking about that before. So g'day, Ben, as well. Yeah.
No, he's a good guy. In fact, I keep in communication with him. So at that point in time, the administrators were KPMG, and KPMG obviously had some meetings with those in charge and said, this is what we've got to try and sell the business. They approached myself and said, look, we'd like for Peter Noske and yourself to get together and do a presentation on the musical product division, because we think that that's profitable. And in fact, I was running the Allans Melbourne store, and it was actually the most profitable store in the group, which is one of the reasons that I think musical products was attractive, because we were running at about 10% net profit to sales, and a lot of stores were losing money. So 10% net profit, we were profitable, and the Allans Melbourne store was pretty much a separate entity,
Was that Liz? No. What street was that on back then?
That was 133 Burke Street.
That's right.
Prior to that, Allans was in 256 Collins Street for over 100 years.
Yes.
And I took over as a store manager in 94, and my first role was to move that store because everything had sort of got into a change of Brushes. Brushes occupied that whole building, and that all changed. They went down to King Street. I don't know if you remember those days.
Yeah, that was
Brushes.
pre me.
Yeah,
I do remember there was a time where there was a Brushes store on, it was either Elizabeth Street or Russell Street that had a small Allans up the top. Yeah.
Yeah, but 99, that all changed. And so KPMG approached us and said, can you do a presentation with Peter? And we've got some prospective buyers, and we had to go in and do this presentation on the business and on how musical product was working, how the Allans store in Melbourne was working, and what the other stores were. Other stores, there was only really Allans Burke Street and Allans Gawler Place in Adelaide, and the others were Brushes stores. Brushes Sydney, Brushes, I think they're Brush Paling still in Queensland, Brushes Ballarat, all these other stores. So we did a proposal and a presentation to them, to the prospective buyers, and one of which was a guy called Ken Jarrett. And there were some others that I won't mention, but we did this presentation, and at the end of it, KPMG said, out of all that you presented to, who did you think was would be the best fit for the business?
As in to buy the business?
To buy the business.
Yeah, right.
So some people that we presented to said, oh, this is what we want to do. We probably wouldn't keep print music. We'd do this and do that. Ken said, no, we'll take the whole business, and we'd turn in Allans Music. And we said, that's a great strategy. And that's who we backed. And then Ken wanted to know if there was any other partners that we thought might be interested. Peter Noske talked about Jeff Brash.
Yep.
So approached Jeff Brash, and Peter made that introduction.
Yeah,
is my recollection of Jeff Brash with Ken Jarrett, and Jeff Brash brought John Egan into it, and then that became that's the short story. That became the new Allans business.
Yep.
They became the owners, and my job became the general manager of retail stores. So my job was to go and get the new stores to open up as Allans Music. So I went up to Sydney, worked in the Sydney store Another long story, but the short version of it was I would fly up on a Monday and then back to Melbourne on a Friday because I had a family at the stage and my
Yeah,
kids were
wow.
young.
Yep.
But there was a bonus associated with it because the store, well, I'll tell clearly what the store was. When they first opened the store, I was working in the Melbourne area.
Was that in Pitt Street then? Or was it somewhere
No,
else? No.
no. So I was working in Melbourne. And we had to open up what was the Caldwell store became the Allans store in Kew, and then the Melbourne store. And we had to get those sorted out. And so Sydney sort of opened up itself, and Ken was involved in setting that store up. But after it had been open a period of time, they were writing less than $50,000 a week in sales, and it wasn't going anywhere. So I went up and had a look at the store and found that I felt the way that it was set up was not great, to be honest. You probably weren't involved back then, but they put a big guitar, and anyone listening to this part of Allans will remember this. The George Street we opened up in had a big guitar wall that they'd built down the middle of the store. They got this nice timber floor for pianos. They painted it all. No, they didn't. Yeah, they put the timber floor up there. I think it was going to be for pianos, but they put MI up there, musical instruments up there.
Yeah, right.
And pianos downstairs. So the whole thing was a mess. And so I said to Ken, look, I'll go up there and fix it up, but we're going to have to make some changes because that guitar wall's got to go. And he said, how much do you need? And whatever it was, I forget at the time, we needed, let's say 50 grand. So he put 50 grand in the bank account, said, use the money and fix the store up. So I walked in there and funnily enough, at that point in time, there's all sorts of things I uncovered. There was actually a movie roster. Well, some of the staff were going to the movies.
Oh, no.
I got up there, there's like 10 staff out the front of the store smoking, and the store's doing 45 grand a week in sales. And I found out, and there was a few people there that were really disappointed with what was going on. They were the workers that wanted to work and wanted to make it work hard, but the others were out the front smoking and going to a movie. So today, you and him go to the movie, you come back to work, and tomorrow me and John go to the movie, whoever
That's
it would
crazy.
be, right? Right. So we put a stop to all that. I was very disliked
Yeah, I could imagine.
at the start. But my challenge was to get the store to 100 grand a week within 3 months, and then I'd get this bonus. And so we got there. So that's a short story. We made some changes, some staff were let go, and we got some new staff in. We changed the store. We got the guitar wall pulled down, put the guitars up against the wall on slat wall, the old, style of doing things, if you like.
Hanging them up by the neck.
So you could see what you're looking at, and then we built the store up. And then they asked me to stay on a little bit longer because they didn't have a new store manager to come in, and we had to work through that. So that put a lot of pressure on things, certainly home life at that point in time. But I did another, so 6 months. And so anyway, basically that was the beginning of it. And we end up building the business up to, as I said to you before, about 2004, when Mike Brash came in as and took over the business. The board that was involved, again, Ken and John and John Egan from Roland days, Ken Jarrett, Jeff Brash, and they appointed Michael Brash to take over the business. And I met with him, and we had a new strategy of what we would do. I'd go back in the Melbourne store because that was sort of dropped back a little bit. That became all right to get back into Allans Burke Street. And during that interaction, back in Allans, and Lindsay Fox would drop in from time to time, and I told Lindsay, well, I wasn't there, but I was back. So he would come in the store and say g'day and talk about pianos and music. He loved it, just wandering around, and was a great guy, just someone that was very down to earth. And so he rang me one day and said to me, Mark, Lindsay here, what time's your shop shut? And I said, we shut at 6 p.m, Lindsay. Right, I'll see you at 7. Okay, see you then, mate. Hang up the phone. So obviously 6 o'clock, everyone goes home, and I just get on the computer, did some work thinking, well, Lindsay's coming in. But if he's made an appointment like that, he's probably going to buy something, So the last thing I was going to do was say, Lindsay, we shut at 6, mate. What do you mean? 7?
Yeah.
No, so waited till 7 o'clock, and he came in. And I guess I didn't know at the time that interaction was probably going to be the start of something that was going to be built over many, many years.
Mm.
And that's the thing I guess we talked about before is that one thing about being in business and even for personal growth for anyone out there that's listening, you've got to look at things that happen and see them as opportunities. And the challenge is to find out what are the real opportunities and how am I going to take advantage of them. Not that I thought that at the time, because my focus even then was to go just to look at what's happening right now. Lindsay's coming in. Let's meet with him and see what he wants. But you just don't want to ever say no to someone if you know that they're not someone wasting your time.
Well, you probably, I think the way that you phrase that's incorrect. Most people do want to say no to people, but they miss out on those opportunities because they're thinking, well, what about me? I want to go home. Like,
That's
I want
right.
to go home and be in front of the TV at 6:30. Why would I hang around for some dude called Lindsay? If you've got the foresight to understand that these opportunities are only opportunities if you take them.
And I try and tell some of the younger guys that are working for us that, and, you know, obviously got to be careful what you say this day and age to a certain extent. But I've had people that are working for us that we've identified things that they've been up to that you just would shake your head. And you say, look, we've given you an opportunity to work in the store, to represent Steinway and Sons exclusively for the whole country. So when someone comes into that store, you're representing us. You're representing me, a business that we've started from scratch. And I've given you the opportunity to do that. So I want you to make the most of it. And some people think I'm hard because I say, that's not acceptable. And if it's not acceptable, we can't continue the relationship, right? Yeah. However, people that do put in and are working for us and do make that effort, you know, are people that have been with us for 10 years or more. You know, Alison West is our business manager. She worked for us for years and she was always had the best intention of doing the right thing. And then she left, had a family, had a couple of kids, and then contacted me one day and wanted to come back. She's back.
Yeah, because as if you would say no to someone like
right?
that.
But others don't. Some people don't get that. Louis, our marketing manager, the same thing. We sometimes bump heads and we'll have arguments, but we always tell each other what we're thinking. We're open, and I love the guy. You know, I mean, he has a heart of gold, and he always works for the best interest of the business. And even days he's not working, you know, we'd have a situation where I send him an email 11 o'clock at night thinking I'll talk to him about that tomorrow. He'll ring me at midnight and we're on the phone for an hour.
Yep.
Right? Because he wants to do the right thing by the business. On the other side of that, I've had people that we've looked and had maybe some comments from other staff. Maybe this person's not doing the right thing. Look on the cameras, they're watching YouTube clips with headphones on without moving for 2 hours. You know, you go, look, that's not what we want you to do. But some people don't see the opportunities that they've given, right?
Yep.
That's the whole reason for that. However, so Lindsay, I wait at 7 o'clock. Lindsay comes in this particular night, and he wants to buy some Steinway pianos for people in the family as a Christmas present, which only Lindsay does.
Only he can do that.
No, there's been others, but not to the scale of Lindsay.
It's so cool.
So in the end, the short story is we've fine-tuned it to 4 of this particular model piano, 4 of them, and they're about $520,000 collectively. And I said to him, look, Lindsay, it's $480 for you, and we'll get everything sorted, get them delivered on time. I'll take care of everything, and we're good to go. And he says, right, pulls out 20-cent piece out of his pocket. He says, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll toss you. And if you win, I'll give you your 480. But if I win, you'll sell it to me for 400. Unexpected, right? I mean, no one's ever done that. No one's ever actually come in to spend $500,000. You know, mind you, it wouldn't buy you 4 pianos today. Let's just get that
for sure.
Put that out there. But so I said, look, Lindsay, the people I work for entrust me to run the store for them, right? Not to gamble with their funds. It's not my money. I'm here to represent them, and it's their money. I'm not going to toss you for it. I've already given you a good deal at 480. I mean, that's not the price everyone's going to get, you know. And he pushed it again. No, you can win. It's not a two-headed coin. Have a look. And I'm looking at it's a normal 20-cent piece. And he said, 50-50 chance for you and for me. I said, Lindsay, look, I'm not a gambler. And even if I was, I'm figuring against you, I'll probably lose, right? For whatever reason. Um, but I said, look, it's 8:15. We've been going for over an hour. I want to go home. You want to go home. We know what you want. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll split it down the middle. $440,000. You're happy. I'm happy. And we're all good to go. And he says, well done, son. Shook hands with me, right? So he was happy with that. Now, then I had to organise a deposit from him, and I've told you the story. Do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, have to.
So back in those days, Allans had these registers that you'd pump in the pricing and the deal, and they'd print out a little docket like that, and someone could buy a Steinway for $150,000, and they get this white docket. And I always was saying to the management, that's not good enough to give someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had these warranty books that we would write out, and we got them made up, and we'd have a warranty book. But the receipt was this little ticket. And I thought, for a $440,000 sale, I'm not going to go to Lindsay and go, here's your receipt, right? So we did something on the computer, but I still felt it wasn't substantial enough. And something came to my mind of an interaction I had with Lindsay some months earlier where he'd popped into the store to see me, and I was out. I was out with the sales manager, the then sales manager from Steinway, a guy called James Ledgerwood from Steinway Hamburg. And he came out to Australia, so I was interacting with him, and I was taking him around to institutions, going to Melbourne Concert Hall, University of Melbourne. We're out on the road, and one of the staff rang me and said, oh, Mark, Mr. Fox is here. He wants to talk to you. I said, okay, well, can you put him on the phone? So Lindsay gets on the phone, and I said, hey, sorry, I'm not there. I'm out at the moment. I can come back if you're going to be there for a little while. But and he said, oh, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm out with James Ledgerwood, sales manager from Steinway. We're going around looking at institutions and just showing him around Victoria. He says, oh, no, that's all right. I've got to go. He said, is he a German? And I said, well, he's an Englishman background, but he works now and lives in Germany. So he's pretty much a German today because he married a German lady and he's got a family there. He says, ask him if he knows Schultz. So I've got him on speaker in the car, and James is sitting beside me, and I said to James, do you know Schultz? And James goes, Mr. Fox, this is James. Lovely to hear your voice. He said, there is a Schultz in the factory. Do you know him? And Lindsay says, no, don't know him. No. What about Colonel Clink? Do you know him? Now, Lindsay's always comes up with these things. He's always about shock value. I think he likes to see how people react. But
yeah. So
James starts laughing, took it in the right way, and I think so. He's talking about Hogan's Heroes. I said, you're talking about Hogan's Heroes? He goes, yes. Does he know them? James goes, no, Mr. Fox, don't know them. And he goes, all right, well, I'll catch up with you later. And that was pretty much the end of the conversation. So then, of course, we're driving along talking about Lindsay, and that's always the sort of result that he gets, I think, because he puts things out there. He's done it 100 times to me since then, sometimes much more shocking, but that's what he does. And so that sort of interaction came to me when I was sitting in my office this particular day, having done the sale with him, printed out the docket, and thought, what can I go and give him? And I thought, back in that point, just around the corner from our store was an Aussie disposal shop in Russell Street that a lot of people probably know. Anyone from Melbourne will know that Aussie disposal shop in Russell Street, which is now gone. But I thought, let's go and see what they've got and take him a present, with the docket. So I walked in there, and pretty much straight away I saw this German officer's hat. It was actually original from the war. So I looked at that and I thought, oh, maybe it was only like $80 or something. And they had some German officers' gloves. So I said, look, I'll take those. So I got them in a bag, went back to the shop, made a time to go see Lindsay to give him his receipt. And so when I turned up, I said to his assistant, I'm here to see Lindsay. And she said, yeah, we know you're coming, Mark, so all good. But he's got someone with him, but just a sec, I'll see if he's cool for you to go in, right? So she comes out and she says, yeah, just go in. Now, at this stage, I got a bit nervous because I got this present for him in the bag that I wanted to talk to him about why I bought it for him, and there's someone else in there, so I'm thinking, oh, how's this going to go, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I walk in there and there's a lady there. I'm not sure who she was, but he said, what do you got for me? So I said, well, I've got your receipt for your deposit, and we're arranging the delivery and everything like that, and I've got your warranty book, but also decided that I'd get you a present based on you proceeding with us and having the trust in us to go ahead with the sale. I've got you a German officer's hat, from the war, from the Aussie disposal shop, and some German officers' gloves. I'm thinking, how's that going to go down,
Yeah.
right? He looks at it and he goes, that's fantastic. I love it. Gets a hat, puts a hat on, puts the gloves on, and he's sitting in his office like that. And he goes, I'm going to wear these to my next Mercedes-Benz meeting.
Unbelievable.
And I said, well, I'm glad you like it, right? And the lady's sitting there going, what's going on in here, right? I don't know what the meeting was with her about. But so I left him with that and I left. And that was pretty much that particular sale.
Mm.
And
Can we just stop there for 1 second? Because I just want to unpack the importance of that, because it's something that, the industry that we're both in is about sales. And particularly in the last 10 or 15 years, the way that this approach to selling has changed, and salespeople not being the sort of people that they once were. How important is that interaction, and why do you reckon that interaction was so important?
look, the thing is that when you're at that level of business with Steinway, you've got the best product in the world, but it's expensive, right? And even today, it's more expensive. But a lot of the sales we're doing today, that I'm doing today, and our staff are doing today, my most successful salespeople, who incidentally is June at the moment, but the reason that she's the most successful salesperson is based on the relationships that she makes. It's about building a relationship. I don't sell a Steinway even today to somebody and then never talk to them again. We're in communication with them. I would say I've become friends with a lot of customers. I go up to Queensland on the Gold Coast. We've got a store up there and we've sold pianos up there to people that are great friends today. I go up there and say, you catch up for a beer. They catch up with me. They invite me to their house. And it was no difference. Looking at it's not about just selling someone a piano, right? Who are they? What are they like? What do they do? What's their background? Get to know them. You don't just buy a piano from you because it's the best piano in the world. Everything's got to come together. And I say to the staff, with every interaction, one mistake, you lose.
Mm.
So you've got to get it right. If I had have given Lindsay a little docket with a book and gone around there, and that's your deposit, that's your receipt, he might have thought, okay, great, thanks for coming, see you later. Not front of mind anymore. I didn't do it for a reason to be front of mind. I did it for a reason because I respected the guy. I appreciated the fact that he came to me. I appreciated the fact, Lindsay Fox, the reality is a lot of people want a piece of him, right?
Yeah, of course.
He called me, made a time at 7 o'clock to come to my store, interact with me and buy pianos from me. I'm not just going to give him a bit of paper. And that's, whether it be him or anyone else today, that's the way we look at it. But it got in his mind, obviously, and I think, this particular day, which I think is relevant to the story and the relationship, is that I was back at work at Allans sometime later, and just out of the blue, Lindsay rang me and he said, Mark, Lindsay, what are you up to? I said, well, I'm at work, Lindsay, I'm in the store. I want you to get in a cab and come out to my place. Okay. Hang up the phone. No worries. So we're going to Lindsay's place, right? And I thought, well, I've got a car, my own car. I've got a parking spot. I've got a company car. It's in the car park. Why don't I get a taxi? Just get in my car. And then I thought, well, look, Lindsay said get a cab. Might be a reason. I'll get a cab. And again, these are the business lessons you learn from someone like him. You got to listen to what these people say to you. And you might have your own idea. And it's not to say that you're just totally compliant to everything. You're not. You just got to assess it and go, I'm going to do what, at that point, make a decision what he wants me to do, right? So I got a cab and went out there. And so we were in his kitchen having a chat, and he's telling me about a few things. He'd been given the Order of Australia title at that point. He had some letters and congratulations letters, and he shared some of them with me. And then he just said he had a meeting in Collins Street and he wanted to jump in the Bentley and drive back into the city. So I said, okay. He said, you jump in the passenger seat, and his chauffeur got in the back seat, and Lindsay drove through the city, right?
Yep.
Hence, catch a cab.
Yeah.
Got a car there. If I
You'd
didn't
have lost
listen,
that opportunity.
well, the thing is with Lindsay, again, you probably go, he bought his car. It's not what I said. Okay, mate, you drive your car back. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
End of the story, right? No, so we're in the car. He drives back. He's asking me about Steinway. He loves the pianos that he bought. He loves the brand, and he loved our interaction. And he said, you're selling Steinway pianos as part of what you do, but why don't you take the brand and do it yourself? And I go, well, I'm working for a company that represents the brand. It's not a matter, you just can't go, yeah, I'll take, plus every piano has to be paid in full before it leaves the factory. There's a lot of funding involved. And I don't have that sort of capital. So it's not something I've thought about, Lindsay. He says, well, you run it, I'll fund it. Okay. Righto. He says, well, I've got to go. I've got to go. So he pulls up in Collins Street and he gets out the car and he says, take Mark where he's got to go. And so the chauffeur gets in the front and Lindsay gets out, shakes hands with me and off he goes. And the chauffeur says, where do you want to go? So back to work in Burke Street. Righto. And as we're driving up the street, he says, are you going to take him up on his offer? And I said, well, was he serious? He said, let me tell you, Mark, I've worked with him many, many years. He doesn't say anything unless he's serious.
Mm-hmm.
And so that all sort of stuck in my mind, but I never did anything about it because I was working for people that I respected, people that trusted me in the position that I had and had always looked after me financially. I was on a pretty good salary back then and was getting looked after, so it was not something that I really thought about again.
Mm.
But fast forward to 2005, and at that point, there were some other things that had occurred in the business where Steinway weren't happy with what was going on. And I was a store manager, so Steinway was a brand we had, but it wasn't my focus. And I got called to a meeting and Steinway basically gave an ultimatum that I told you about before, that unless Allans were prepared to focus on it, they were taking everything off them. It was 100% that they took Queensland and other states, and they were actually wanting to take the whole lot. And I had a discussion after that meeting with Michael Brash, who was the boss at the time, and said, look, I reckon that I can work with Steinway. I know them, and let me have a crack at the brand and focus on it. And that's the only way that they'll allow us to maintain the relationship with them if someone focuses on it. I left out a part which I spoke to you about before. I don't know if you want to touch on any of that, but Mike wanted me to go to the meeting in Singapore where he was called to and he couldn't go. And they weren't happy with that. So that was another thing where they said, look, I appreciate you coming, but Mike's the boss and he didn't come to the meeting. It just, again, signifies the fact that we want to move away from Allans. But I said to them, look, I see opportunities with the brand. I can see where it hasn't been focused on. I agree with you guys. The company was doing less than 10 Steinways a year back then. Let's focus on it and see what we can do. So they allowed that to happen. They needed James, the sales manager, to come out and interact with us and see what the plan was, whether Mike agreed for me to focus on it, what was the business plan. So I did a lot of work basically building a business plan for when that meeting was going to occur. When he came out to Australia and we went around, met some institutions, not the time Lindsay rang us, this is in addition to that.
Yep.
Lindsay's not involved in anything right now at that point. And so James came out and the short version of that story was that he said, I'll give you a target of 36 pianos, 36 brand new Steinways in 3 years. If you can achieve over the next 3 years and sell 36 pianos, we'll give you an agreement to continue with the states we've discussed, which was Victoria, South Australia and the ACT.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So after they left, went to Mike and we put this strategy together and basically it was handed over to me. So I was no longer store manager of Allans. I was the general manager for Steinway sales throughout Australia. And that was about 2004. So the first year, remember, including Queensland, Queensland was given to someone else. We didn't have that anymore. But including Queensland, the business was doing on an average for I think the last 3 years they'd done less than 10. I think it was 7 units on average a year. So in the first year, again, it was about focusing on the brand. I wasn't doing anything super scientific here. It wasn't rocket science. I was building relationships, going to the University of Melbourne saying, hey, I'm now looking after Steinway. What can I do to help you guys get some new pianos? I'd go to the Arts Centre. I'd go to the other private schools. I'd go to private teachers. I'd tell the technicians, we're focusing on Steinway. If anyone's looking to Steinway, send them to me. And I'm not dealing with the staff anymore. I'm not dealing with anything to do with the business other than Steinway pianos, which also includes Boston, right? So the subsidiary brand that's made in Japan, we can help people, right?
Yep.
So the first year, we did 20 brand new Steinways. Never been done.
Out.
20, we sold 20 pianos. Went back to a meeting with them for the following dealer meeting, and now I was turning up as a representative. So it was a different meeting, and they were all happy, but they weren't overly excited. It's the first year, 20 pianos, that's great. There's other years to come, right? And so they didn't want to pump it up too much, but they were happy with how we were tracking.
Yeah, for sure.
Second year, we did 16. I mean, when you're looking at those territories, if you do 20 in a year, you know, that's a lot of sales out of the market. I think I got Melbourne Unimode might have bought 4 or something. So
Yeah,
if they buy 4 Steinways, they're not going to buy them next year, right?
correct.
Again, so
Yeah.
we took some of the business out of the market. I remember I sold to the ABC in Adelaide, sold to the Adelaide Festival Centre back then, and some other institutions. And then we did 16, which I was pretty happy with. But basically, we'd now achieved our target in 2 years. That was a 3-year target. And I said, we cemented now, right? We're going early here.
Mm.
And they said yes. During that time, Allans as a whole was in strife.
Yeah.
And that's when a new company came into play and made an offer on buying it, which was the Brackenbury Group.
Mm. That's when I started.
And that's when you started.
Yeah.
And I had meetings with them, and they asked me what I was doing, and I told them. But they really had a completely different focus on the business. That's the reality of it. Again, I had no follow-up with Lindsay about our discussion prior to that because I was just doing my job.
Yeah.
I was working for Allans,
Yep.
working for Steinway for Allans. It was pretty clear, I think, early on that these guys from the Brackenbury Group had the best intentions for the business. They had a lot of procedures and strategies that weren't in place, so that it was very procedure-driven. You had to do this, this, this. You had to do these reports each week on what you were doing, and their whole philosophy was if you do these things, the business will fall into place.
Yep.
Now, some of those things that were missing from our business, I think, were really important that they put into place. But from my perspective, the one thing that they didn't understand in our industry was the relationships that are important, and that's customer relationships with staff that we had. Because in their mind, if you had a problem staff member, that, you know, we would work through certain aspects of challenges with staff because some of them were musicians, some of them would come in after gigs, and you'd have to work through it with them, and you'd have to mentor them a bit. You know, almost like a psychologist. We said that
It's
before.
a very, very unique market sector, both, you know, to your point of the types of personalities you have to manage, but also people's purchasing patterns. Like the way that people buy musical instruments is not the same way they go and buy a pair of runners or
100%.
something like that. Very different.
And they didn't understand that. So if you weren't compliant and you didn't do what they wanted you to do, you were gone.
Mm.
You know, and I had challenging staff that were writing, you know, one particular one we talked about before, writing $20,000 a week in guitar sales. But, you know, the guy was a challenge, but we had a good relationship. We worked through those things with him. And sometimes he'd fly off the handle and you'd have to pull him in the office and say, mate, what's going on?
Mm.
Oh, I'm not happy. And then go for a walk around the block, mate, and come back and talk to me rationally. And then we can sit down and think about what the issue is, right? And he'd do that. But with guys like that, they didn't last with this company.
Yeah.
Because they said, no, that guy's, we're not sitting down and
Not going to fall in
get
line.
rid of him.
Mm.
Okay, but who's going to pick it up? Oh, the other guys will pick it up. There's the book. But they didn't, right? Those guys didn't pick it up. And a lot of people left. That's the reality of it. And there were some discussions with Steinway that were, you know, had that, you know, it was a different culture. Let's just put it at that. And Steinway, we're talking 3 years down the track of interaction with them. And I went to them at one point and said, look, you know, what about a focus on Steinway as a freestanding business? And the response was the business wouldn't wash its face.
Mm.
That was the response. Okay. But I didn't try and backdoor these guys. That wasn't my strategy. We continued working with them until Steinway basically had enough. And there were some promises made that weren't delivered on.
Mm.
And Steinway would come to me and say, you guys were going to buy these pianos. Why are you not buying them? I said, well, they won't buy them. I can't tell you anything else.
Mm.
And I'd go to the boss and say, do you want, this is part of the promotion is we have to buy these pianos. We'll buy them when we sell them. I said, well, that's not what they want. They want us to buy them, which is what you committed to. And go, no, we'll buy them when we sell them. That didn't appease Steinway. And then they just said, look, we don't see a future with the business, so we're going to give notice to the business that we won't be continuing, which they did. I was contacted to look at what the options were because they wanted me involved.
Yep. Which probably, again, just sings to the importance of relationship,
Absolutely right.
trust, and loyalty, right? If you do the right thing, whether or not you're doing the right thing, because your problem is you've got 2 or 3 entities that you have to try and appease on different levels. You can't always appease everyone, but if you're truthful and you're honest, then it doesn't matter. Like the right thing's going to come of it.
It was very challenging, that period. And it was also challenging for them because, you know, they had their strategies and structures on how a business should run. And I was sort of an anomaly in that. I didn't fit into it because I'm running around selling Steinways and they didn't really understand that because you got to do your reports. And my reports are always late because I was trying to run around selling piano. Where's your report, Mark? Oh, I haven't done it. Okay. And we haven't met with the marketing team. In my book, the marketing team don't bring anything to the table, right? It's a waste of time. But I've got to do what I'm told. So I'd meet with the marketing team. You know, and we were always bumping heads. And I'm thinking, I want to be building relationships with people I want to build relationships with, not meeting with the marketing team that are asking me all these questions about stuff they didn't know about how Steinway was working, right? But I did what I was supposed to do. That wasn't the key to me being annoyed at the culture in the business. I guess there was an element of disrespect that came my way. There were promises that I made that I delivered on, and promises that they made that they didn't deliver on. You know, I had I was on a commission. My commission was based on sales, and there were times when I wasn't paid commission on sales that I got for reasons that were made up. You know, and I'm not someone that ever would make this stuff up. You know, that's the reality.
Those are little things that start to then chip away at that trust factor that we talk about, right? Where it's like,
I come out way for some meetings and say, I've never been treated like that, right? So that, you know, when the game changed, and I was contacted about what other opportunities are there that you see, and I've got one.
Good one, pretty good one.
Well, good one, right? But we're talking years down the track.
Yeah, that's right. You can't
And
guarantee.
I'd had interaction with him, but I never brought that up, and he never brought that up again. So I rang him and said, "Look, there's something going on here. Steinway had given notice to Allans. You know, some years ago, you had a discussion with me in the car when you said, actually, I went to see him. This wasn't over the phone. I went to see him. And he would always see me. This is the thing, right? The one thing I love about the guy, even to this day, over 20 years, right? He's a guy that's got relationships with, you know, all the head politicians in the country. The Prime Minister, you know, he's friends with the Prime Ministers outside the country. You know, he's proud of the fact that years ago, I go into his office, he shows me photos of, you know, years ago when Princess Di and Prince Charles came to Australia, they had dinner at Lindsay's house.
Yeah.
He's got photos of that interaction, and he's a guy that has...
He was given an Order of Australia as well, correct?
He has, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got relationships all over the world. But I call him, he takes the call or he calls me back, and it's never not been the case, right? So I wanted to have a meeting with him. No problem, come and have a meeting, right? So I said to him, years ago, you made this comment, and do you remember it? You said, you run it, I'll fund it, in relation to Steinway Pianos. He said, Mark, if I said it, I meant it. I said, okay. Nothing more needs to be said. Go do what you got to do. Talk to you later. Shakes hands with me, and off I went. So contact Steinway. There's interest here, and there's an opportunity here. So they wanted to meet with him. So we went to Germany. We met with Steinway, and that's a short version. We ended up with the agreement from Steinway to represent the brand in those territories that I basically lobbied for all those years ago.
Unreal.
Which were South Australia, Victoria, and the ACT. So a lot of people are always curious about that story, how it came about. None of them really know. Well, that's a short version of it, which is not that short, but it gives you a bit of an understanding of it. But the funny thing was, we went to that meeting in Germany, and we came back, and Steinway said to me, "Okay, we're going to give you a go. We hope we're making the right decision." All that sort of stuff. It was in 100 years they'd been with Allans.
Yeah,
over 100 years.
Yeah, that's right.
First change, and was me and Lindsay. But I really didn't know at that point how this was all going to work, right? So I rang Lindsay one day and said to him, listen, Steinway going to give us the agreement here. So, but I don't know how this works, how this is going to work. Like, I mean, we haven't got anything in writing. We've had some discussions, but there's nothing in writing. So can we get something that says how this is going to work? No. Okay. Nothing in writing? No. We've had discussions, Mark. You run the business. I fund it. That's it. And that way you show that you trust me. Because if you don't trust me, we don't go into business together. I'll
Mm.
talk to you later. Hangs up the phone. That's how he works, right? So I thought, okay, well, I've got to start this. Mind you, I skipped the part because I said, Steinway are going to agree to this. And I said, how's it going to work? And he said that comment about if you don't trust me, we don't go into business together. So there's nothing in writing. And I'm just about to head off for 3 weeks overseas. I'll talk to you later. And then he hung up, right? So I'm going, right. Steinway just given us the agreement. No one knows about this except Lindsay. And he's going overseas for 3 weeks. I don't even know how I get paid when I start. Didn't know anything, right? Anyway, it's all good. I trust the guy. And there's no option here. Steinway got the agreement. I'm going to run it. Let's get started.
Yeah, it's in motion.
Let's get started.
Mhm.
So I kid you not, I'd get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, get on the computer, right? What's our business plan? How are we going to start this? What are we going to call it? Where are we going to be? Where's the shop going to be? What's the opening order that we need? How's this going to run? I don't know. So let's put these things in place. So I did. I started emailing Steinway, asking them things about what their expectations are, what we're going to have as an opening order. And we worked through that and worked through something that was going to make sense and what the strategies would be. So I waited about a month and I was working from 8, 9 in the morning till 2 or 3 in the morning. I was not nonstop.
Yep.
And there were so many things to consider and so many things to do and to advise people, building a company name and logos and things like that.
Yeah, of
And
course.
all these sorts of things that you do from ground up. About a month later, I rang Lindsay. You're back? He said, yep. I said, right, well, this is all underway. Can I come and talk to you about how this is going to work? And he said, yep. So talked to his assistant at the time, made a time. So I went in there and I sit down in his office. He goes, g'day. I said, how are you, mate? He said, good. I said, so what's the go? Hang on a sec. Gets on the phone. He says, right, I want you, I want this other person, this other person, this other person. He named about 5 or 6 people. Can come in my office, need to have a chat. Hang up the phone. So all these people walk in with folders. Just come because Lindsay asked them to come.
Yep.
Right, everyone, this is Mark. We're going in the piano business together. You guys go sort it out. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at all these people and they go, okay, let's go in the boardroom. We go in the boardroom. What's going on? Piano business. Why? Why are we doing that? So I just give him a bit of a story. I said, well, look, I was running Allans and got to know Lindsay. Loves the brand. Steinway Pianos. We've met with Steinway. They've given us the go-ahead. We're going the piano business together. But I don't even know how this is going to work, and I'm in your hands. How's it going to work? So they all introduced themselves. One of them was the legal counsel. One was one of the finance accountants, and there was the managing director. All these people from that now, some of them have moved on, some retired from that meeting, some of them have gone on to other businesses, but they all became friends of mine, total respect, total professionals.
Yeah.
Well, there was a couple of little things we just had to fine tune, but mate, all professional people that I was very early on realised that I was within a group of people that were next level.
Yeah. In particular, too, I mean, not that I've had any direct interaction with Lindsay, but in my last role, we did the AV fit out for the car collection.
Cool.
So just
Okay.
working with the team down there was a woman there who'd been working for him for 20-something years as well.
Is that Peter?
Was that her name? I think so.
Yeah, would have been.
She was an amazing person to deal with.
She's left now, but she was there during that whole period and the go-to person for the car museum.
Even just being able to walk through the car museum.
Fantastic.
It is unbelievable, the cars that are down there. And I didn't even realise that that's just open for people to go and have a look at. You can go
it's open at certain times.
Yeah.
And they pay a donation, I believe, to go in, and all of that money goes to charity.
Yeah. But just another one of the things that, like you see, when you talk about a different type of organisation, it's a very different type of organisation.
Well, and I think another important part of that, where I have done some motivational speaking with certain companies, and they're all really interested in, they're all not so interested in me and the interaction with Lindsay. And that's why he's such a talking point in what we're discussing now. But that was how the business started.
Yep.
And as I said, I didn't know at the start how it was all going to work. So, it was a learning curve. And I said to Lindsay at one point, we had someone that wanted to work with us, or I wanted them to work with us in a marketing capacity. And they said to me, can I meet with Lindsay? Can you introduce me to Lindsay? I said, yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. So I rang Lindsay and said, look, I'm about to employ someone in a marketing capacity for the business, and he wants to just meet with yourself. Are you happy to meet with him and let me know what you think? And he said, no problem. I'll meet with him, but I won't tell you what I think. I said, okay, why not? No, this is your business. You run it. I've got nothing to do with it. I'm not going to tell you what I think of the person because if you stuff the business up, you stuff it up on your own. You can't blame me for it.
Mm.
I said, no worries, mate. Hung up. I knew from that point how this is going to run, right? He's never had an involvement in the business because someone like him, if he empowers you to run the business, it's 100% trust.
Yep.
I trust you to run it. And if you stuff it up, you can only blame yourself, right?
Yeah, there's the expectation and accountability that comes with it. Trust isn't free, but yeah, you've got to do with it what you've got to do with it.
But it's next level of working with someone compared to the situation we had before with people that didn't trust you, that always were telling you what to do and wanting to micromanage you. This guy go, no, show us what you can do, right? If you stuff it up on your own, and the Lynn Fox people that we work with, they help set this up. Mind you, nothing's in writing, right? However, we started, and of course the legal counsel come in. I'm going in business for Lindsay Fox, so I had to become a director of the company. I had a percentage ownership of the business. And the paperwork was this thick from their side because to become a director, you have to have all your police checks. You have to have a whole bunch of things that have to be done. My side, I had to have a legal people on my side to look at the contracts and the agreements. Going in the business of Lindsay Fox, you got to have
it's a handshake
systems
deal
in
at the pub,
place,
yeah,
right, and strategies and agreements and that. But they're all common sense stuff. They're all logical. There's nothing in there other than putting everything in place for the business to run.
Mm.
And that's how we started. And all of those people, it's not a relationship. I mean, I'm still working with that. One of the people in that meeting that day is now Lindsay's CEO. And I meet with her once a month, generally over the phone. But all we do is just talk about where we're at, where our stock is at and stuff like that. But she's never told me what to do because they don't, why would they?
Yeah,
They know about
they don't
piano
know.
business. No one from Lynn Fox has ever had an input into this business about how it should run or what should be done.
Mm.
We just go there and say, this is what we've achieved and that's acceptable or it's not.
What I want to know, and I mean, look, it's very obvious with the things you've been saying, but for me, it's always struck me as the relationship that you've had with Lindsay over these past few years, because I've observed you on various social media networks and things. We're always sort of a couple of steps removed, but it seems to be a very trusted relationship, right? Like it's not something that you take for granted. And it's never something that I see you being like showboaty, I know Lindsay Fox and I can do anything. And I feel like, the importance of your character in that situation is the only thing that makes that work, because you could have had plenty of douchebags along the years who have had an opportunity like that and blown it because what's more important to them is I'm working with Lindsay Fox now. I'm untouchable. I've made it.
Yeah.
But you've sort of doubled down on that ever since day one and been like, well, this is an opportunity that I've got to actually do something with.
Look, I mean, that you're right. And it's not something that you can take for granted, but it's not something like some people, I'm sometimes conscious just in myself to do certain things and post certain things where it comes across as you showing off.
Mm.
Oh, the guy's showing off. But I never do it for that purpose. In fact, some people don't know why I post certain things that I post. I'll post certain interactions with Lindsay because my marketing team are right across my social media. So sometimes I'll do something, this is me and Lindsay at an event and this is what we did. And it's on my social media, on my personal Facebook page with me and Lindsay. But then I say to them, they get onto it and they take that and they do what they do with it from a business perspective. It's all ready to go, right? So I do that on LinkedIn and then we do it on Facebook.
Mm.
So there's other reasons behind that. But also I'm proud of the fact that we've got the relationship and the things that we've achieved. And so look, I'm conscious of this, but I don't want it to be taken out of context. But years ago, many years ago, when I first started with the Brush Group, there was a guy called Jeff Oakley that used to run the musical products division. And I remember having a meeting with him one day, and something had come up where I'd won this, what was called a Top Achievers Award.
Yep.
And he said, "Oh, congratulations," and that. And he said, "You should tell people about that. You should tell people about that." And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, I tell my close family, but you don't want to boast about something and you don't want to be seen as blowing your trumpet." And he said, in life, you've got to blow your own trumpet, because if you don't, no one will blow it for you. Now, you've got to be careful with that. You don't want to go overboard.
You want to be genuine, of course.
You've got to be genuine, right? But I also respect the relationship with Lindsay, where I don't want to go and you don't want to get cocky about that, because it's silly, right? It's about you're only as good as your last year, and we've been lucky because we started this, as I said, in 2009, and then we hit Steinway up pretty hard to be national representatives in 2000, well, a number of times. They said no to us on a few occasions, which I think I've said to you.
Yeah.
They didn't really want, the people in charge didn't really want, the president at the time didn't want a national distributor. As much as he annoyed me with that strategy, I still really liked him and had a lot of respect for him, because I've known him for many years, and he was a very astute guy and understood the business better than anyone. I used to be sometimes amazed at how he understood things that were happening in Australia when he was in Germany and hadn't been here that often, and go, how does he even know that? But he did, right?
Yeah.
So he had his reasons. But, we would get people coming to us and saying, hey, I want to see a brand new Steinway Model B, and you're the only ones that have got one, and I'm coming from Sydney or I'm coming from Queensland. They didn't have stock. We're saying this doesn't make sense. We can stock these states. We can put systems in place. We've already got a system in place. We've already got a company structure that will work. So the CEO of Steinway Worldwide became aware of our proposal and our structure, and fairly quickly becoming aware of it, made the change for us to be the national distributor for Steinway Australia-wide exclusively. And the others, everyone else was advised that they would no longer be involved, but they could work with us. And we were happy to work with them. Some of them agreed to work with us and then didn't stick to the agreement. I won't get into that. That's another story. But, so we took over in 2015 and we gave some numbers that I think they felt we wouldn't get to, but we did. We did get those numbers. But we were lucky because a couple of things fell in place. 2017, we launched what's called the Steinway Spirio in Australia, which is the piano.
That plays itself off an
iPad.
It's unbelievable. That
game
thing.
changer.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you don't have to now be, and I think, from the marketing perspective, in order to buy a Steinway, you've got to have money, a decent amount of money. It's not a small purchase. But to justify that spend, you'd also think, well, I'm going to want to know how to play piano. I'm not going to spend $500,000 on a piano, put it in a room and never play it. Now you can have a piano that plays itself.
Look, you understand this business very well, mate, and that's evident in your thought process, because, I used to say that the percentage of people that we're trying to appeal to is very small. It's someone that's got the money, got the financial backing to buy a Steinway. There's nothing under $200,000 today for the handmade Steinway.
There you go.
And someone in the family wants to learn or wants to play, right? There's no point spending $200,000 on a piano that no one in the family plays and wants to learn, right?
Yeah.
And a funny part of that is going back to Lindsay. When we started this, he said to me, a lot of my friends will buy Steinway pianos off you. And I said, great, okay, well, introduce us. And I got to know a lot of Lindsay's friends through our interaction and functions and events we'd go to. And I said to him, probably about 5 or 6 years later, we had this catch up, and I said to him, when we started this, you said a lot of your friends will buy Steinways. None of them have. We've talked to a lot of them. None of them have followed through. Can you give them a prod or something? He said, oh, no, they all think they're too busy, or they're no one plays and they're too busy, or whatever reason it is.
Yep. And
that was pretty much the end of that conversation. It just, they were busy. I talked to them and said, oh, Mark, no one plays. And, 2017, we launched the Spirio, plays off an iPad. as we sit here today, I would struggle to name any of Lindsay's friends who actually don't have one
Wow.
because they all of a sudden, wow, you can get the iPad, you can put in cocktail music, press play, the piano will select its own cocktail songs and play all night as long as you let it go, right? So you got a dinner party, people are coming over, what do? You can't put the TV on, that's rude. You put
Sonos on or whatever. Yeah.
right, okay,
Yeah.
but then there's some music playing in the background. It doesn't have the same impact as someone coming in the house seeing a Steinway piano, keys are moving, and you can say that's Lang Lang playing the piano because he played
Because
it.
it's their performance
It's
that you
their
actually get, right?
performance.
Yeah.
It's not just an audio. There's no audio recording. It's information. When they play it, they stop and the piano plays back what they did.
Mm.
That goes on the app, and everyone around the world that's got the app and the Spirio presses play. It does exactly what they did. So there's Lang Lang playing your piano, right? So they go into a cocktail party. They see the piano playing, and someone buys one, and then someone rings me. I just saw this at such and such's house. How do I get one? Give me the order. Mates rates, yep, this is the price they paid. This is what you'll pay. Or it's gone up and this is it, right? That's it. And then, minimal discount on these pianos today. We don't have big, pianos have gone up. The Steinways have gone up.
And I imagine logistics with something like a piano is a big stinger too, right? Moving those things across the world.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. Freight costs, I think, for everyone have gone up across the world. But the cost of timber, steel, manufacturing, labour, or everything that comes into it. I mean, we had the biggest increase at the start of 2023 that we've ever had in Steinway pianos. So I felt that we wanted to absorb some of that because it was a big jump. And so like Steinway Model B is a very popular piano. If we applied normal margin to the current new cost, the piano's $330,000. And I said, let's pull it down to under $300,000. Let's make it $299,000, right? But we've got to limit the discounting because if we go to normal margin, it's $330. We would give institutions 10% off. That's the reality of it. So then the institution can buy it for $300. We're already at starting point of $299. So even institutional discount become 5%. So people sometimes come in and they look at a Model B, and it happens. And the salespeople will ring me and say, oh, look, I've got someone on the floor here. They're looking at a Model B and they're offering $250,000 and I'll take it now. No, not going to happen. And do we lose some of those deals? Not a lot, but we can't do it. And here's the other thing from my perspective is that let's say we give a 5% discount. Let's say the piano's $300,000, right? So that makes rough figures $285, right? Is that right? 55% roughly?
Yeah.
So you come in and I give you institutional discount, Mike, you can have it for $285, right? I'll probably do a little bit better for you.
Thanks.
Good, mate. This is the point though. Someone comes in and says, I want it for $250 or $260 or $270. How do we sell it to them for $270 knowing that we just sold it to you for $285? It doesn't sit right with me, right? So I always say the last price that we sold the piano for, that's the price we don't go under. Unless there's some sort of extenuating circumstances, and we'll assess that at the time, whether it be it's at somewhere that's going to be exposed or this and that, and they're going to give us advertising. But even then, we're very careful, right? So the discounting is minimal. But what I do say to people is hang on to the piano. It's going to go up.
Yeah, so the pianos appreciate it. I suppose the Steinways
They go up every year, right?
Appreciating asset.
So look, people sometimes buy other brands for other reasons, and normally it's because of price.
Mm.
If it's not a price thing, most people will buy a Steinway.
Yeah.
But they can sometimes other brands have lowered the price to make themselves attractive because the reality is probably don't sell as many pianos as what we do Steinways. And making 3,000 pianos a year and they're generally sold out. I mean, I've got a situation now where we've got people buying the baby grand Spirio pianos to play off their own.
Yeah.
And we're waiting for stock. We're still getting orders that you can't give you one straight away. We're still getting a lot of orders on them, even if the current situation. But I think the reality is a lot of people buying a piano that's $300,000, they're not so affected by the cost of living.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Pressures.
It's a very different market sector to be working in.
It may make them think a little bit harder about it, but the reality is some people have money and they're getting a higher percentage of interest for that money than they've been able to get for many years.
Yeah.
So, we're lucky that that we're still able to sell these Spirio pianos because they are special. And, you know, if you buy another brand, I'm not just saying it because we represent Steinway. The reality is, in most cases, you're lucky if that piano is worth 50% of what you paid in a few years' time. Hang on to a Steinway for 10 years and see what happens. They become worth more than what you paid. That's been the case for years because we do have an increase every year.
Yeah.
And so people go and see these pianos playing. And the funny thing is, even today we have a management conference call every Monday with all the team, all the management team. And I said, just a reminder that last week we sold 3 Steinway Spirios to different states. One was in Perth, and we also sold one to Tasmania. These people didn't come in our showrooms. They've actually never seen the pianos.
Just bought them online.
They bought them from us. So in the sense of building the relationship, having the conversations with them. One thing that's really important for us is our videos. We have an event. I got a professional videographer. We do a video of that event where we're talking about the Spirio or we're talking about, you know, a Steinway piano. And then with those videos, we'll send them out to our database. We'll send them out to our individual customers. Have a look at this, you know, so they can see those videos. The Spirio video, we've got the Spirio launch video that we did 2017 has had, on YouTube, it still says 90,000 views, but we had it on Facebook at one point. We know that it had like 15,000 views. So we know it's had over 10,000, over 100,000 views.
Yep.
And that sold a lot of pianos because if you're looking at one, that shows you a lot more about, because some people, it plays itself. How's that work?
Yeah.
Have a look at this video.
When you see it, yeah, it makes all the difference.
We also did a video of a special piano called the Black Diamond. It was a special design. And they made 2 versions of it, which was a Concert Grand Model D. They only made 8 Model Ds for the world.
Yeah, right.
And they made 88 Model Bs, which is the smaller version, still 7 foot grand. And Steinway said to us, look, if you've got anyone interested that would be interested in this, can you bring them to Shanghai for the launch? And June, our sales manager, said to me that she had some people that might be interested in it. So I approved for her to fly to Shanghai with those people to go to the event. Lang Lang was at the event.
Oh, wow.
The management of Steinway Worldwide were at the event. The piano, so our client that was with our sales manager, she rang me, she said, they're interested in the piano. If they buy it tonight, they'll get photos up on the stage with Lang Lang, with the CEO of Steinway or president and president. What prices are going to be. So I had to then work out with Steinway, what's the piano going to cost? So there was some other aspects that came about with that, but I won't get into that. We sorted it out in the end. But I said it has to be $1 million. It was $1 million piano. So that's what happened. It's $1 million, and they bought it.
That's unreal.
They bought it at the event, and then we had to, of course, ship one back for them. And then I went out there, we delivered it, and we went out to their property and all that sort of stuff. But then we got the Model B, which is a smaller version. This was a special piano. It was a special Macassar ebony finish, and it's a Spirio R, plays itself, and you can record on it.
Yep.
And they made a Model B version of it. So that piano was about 600 grand for the Model B. And I had a call from a businessman that was interested in something special. So I sent him that video because when we launched it here, we did a launch on it and did a video of it. And you can find it online. I think it's Black Diamond Launch Melbourne, something like that on YouTube.
We'll put a link to it in the comments.
Cool.
Yeah.
He saw the video and then was basically interested in the piano, interested in the fact that it was the only one in Australia, and bought the piano, $600,000. They sold one overseas for more than that. So I already said to him, look, it's already gone up in value than what we're talking about, and you won't get any more of them. They're all sold worldwide. There's no more available. But the funny thing is that he's now building in a property. It still hasn't been delivered. It's still in our showroom, holding it for delivery. He's paid for it in full. Still to this day, he physically has not seen the piano.
Yeah, wow.
Only on videos, discussions with us over the phone, and that interaction. And we went to the boat show on Sanctuary Cove, which is a lot of people fly in for that every year in May. It's a very big event, and we've got a store on Sanctuary Cove, so we're right in the middle of it,
Oh, yeah.
which is great. And we're dealing with a lot of people in that Gold Coast area, Sovereign Islands, Sanctuary Cove, that like our Spirios. There's people that have bought properties and selling the properties, and the first thing on their property video was the Spirio playing itself. They sell the property, but they take the Spirio, right? So we've done pretty well up there. And so he contacted me and said he's going into the Sanctuary Cove Boat Show. And I said, well, I'll be there. So we caught up together, and it's the first time we'd physically met, had many conversations on the phone and, did the deal over the phone and a lot of interaction. But the first time we physically met was in Sanctuary Cove, and it was really cool. And we thought we're like mates. We caught up.
Which sort of sings to the whole trust aspect, right? Like that you've built this sort of empire where people can trust that they can do business with you with those sums of money, sight unseen, and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, the whole thing has to fit, I think, in any business. And what fits for people to make decisions is that we're representing Steinway. We've now been doing this our 16th year, and we're backed by Lindsay Fox.
Mm.
When you've got Steinway backed by a credible company, you've got, not blowing my trumpet like I said before, but I've been in the role as a CEO now of the business, representing Steinway Australia-wide. This is our 16th year. We've got some longevity. We've got some runs on the board. They're comfortable dealing with us. You still have to have that interaction on the phone with them. But, excuse me, it's important, I think, even today, one of the customers who I've become really good friends with, and I posted a clip of his house. The guy's a great guy.
Mm.
And we just got on really well. And in fact, he actually sent me a message and said to me that I was one of the first. And so our interaction originally was over the phone, and videos, and a whole bunch of conversations that we had before I actually physically met him as well. And he bought a piano. He bought a Spirio R, which was about, I think, about 380 grand today. He sent me a WhatsApp clip of him asking his fiancée to marry him, asking his girlfriend and became fiancée.
Yeah.
He said, mate, I haven't met you, but here's a video of me asking my girlfriend to marry me, and I wanted to share it with you. And you're one of the first people I thought of.
There you go.
Which is really cool, and I appreciated it. I said, because we interacted, we were talking about our backgrounds and what we do and how he built his business up. What a story that is. I mean, this is a guy that came up with an idea, put everything into it, took years to build, and now, he's built this amazing property on Sovereign Island and has done really well for himself. I respect them, respect the effort that they've gone to, and they respect us. And that's the relationship that we build with a lot of these Steinway customers.
And I think it's every customer that you care to build a relationship with if you're in sales, right? Like, I mean, this is all very specific to the organization that you're in, but none of this is rocket science. None of this is new. Like, this is how you sell to people. And I think we forgot for so long because, people's mentalities change and people will have a sense of entitlement that's a bit different now. But if you can get past all the nonsense and work on building a relationship, you might not even get the sale today, but the sales will come if the relationships are right. If you're not out there building relationships and you're just getting transactions, it's going to run out. Like one day it'll run out and then you'll be back, on your knees trying to find the next one.
Well, the other thing is if you don't do the right thing by people, that word spreads pretty quickly as well. So that's why I say, we make an agreement with someone and if something goes wrong, I'm saying be honest.
Yeah.
Piano didn't turn up on time. We can't deliver it. Don't make it up. We just be honest with people. Most times they respect that. But don't promise something that you can't deliver.
You can't deliver.
And circumstances sometimes change, but that's all about that relationship. And, some people, as we said before, they don't get it. I've given people opportunities to work for us that haven't taken that opportunity. And then, they think that I'm the bad one.
Yeah.
I said, we're not paying you to sit at that desk and wait for something to happen. We're paying you to get off your butt and make something happen.
Make something happen.
We need you to do. And then you'll survive. And then not only that, we'll see what you've done and we'll reward you for it. But you've got to trust us and you've got to show us what you can do. But we've had some ex-Allans employees that, Allans was a different proposition. People came into Allans. It was a well-known brand,
it was a high street
well-known
store.
company.
Yep.
And they expect that to happen. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, you don't just wander into the Steinway Gallery while you're out on Saturday because you're going to buy a piano.
Some can't get their minds around that or their heads around that, and they don't work out. But anyone that has the right attitude, is prepared to work, you know, I've never bumped heads with anyone working for me that's had a go. Even if they fail, I don't care. If you had a go, you were honest and you did the work. I'm never going to criticize someone, for having a go.
Yeah.
But you're going to criticize them for sitting there and waiting for it all to happen and getting angry at you when you ask them questions.
Yeah, and thinking that it's going to fall from the sky. Just as we get to finishing up, I wanted to flip over to something that's probably out of center for anyone that's been listening thus far, but I want to talk Guinness World Records.
Yeah.
So recently, was it last year? Last year?
No, it was this year.
This year?
6th of March.
6th of March, and you became a Guinness World Record holder. Tell us
Well,
about
no,
that.
not officially yet, but I became the world record holder. But so Guinness is an entity, obviously, that
Okay.
That is a Guinness World Record. But there's also, the world record as a whole,
Yep.
which was set, and then Guinness have to that takes a while until that comes through. So
Yep.
I don't ever going to say something that's not actually.
But you
happened
hold a
yet.
world record.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's been recognised by other entities and recognised as a world record. So I've got the certificate to say that you hold the world record for diamond push-ups, which is
The
diamond
worst
push-ups
kind for anyone.
like doing martial arts. At karate, I used to do the karate fairly extensively, and we would do diamond push-ups. And I always explain to people, because the world record was 101, and people think that's not a lot. Okay, go for your life.
5 of them.
If you do
Yeah.
normal push-ups, you can do 100. That's not a problem, right? Some people probably can't. You have to train for anything, I think, but they're okay. This is different. And for me, I always need to have a goal to focus on, whether it be in business or in fitness. And as I said to you, when I was young, I was very unhealthy. I came from, my mother had very bad respiratory illness and asthma for her whole life. It wasn't a year that she wasn't in hospital. So we had a bit of a challenging upbringing, in the sense that we were, mum would be in hospital for 6 weeks. Dad would be on shift work and would be at grandma's house or something like that. And so it was disruptive. And because of that, Dad sort of quit work to look after mum. So I say, within the family, I say that they know that we were certainly the poorest family in the family.
Yep.
We didn't have a lot of money, and but we had a lot of we didn't have a lot of arguments in the family. We had a lot of love. My mum was a very loving person, and my best friend. So I did struggle to talk about that whole thing for many years, but I'm all good with it now. You just got to get your head around these things.
Yeah, of course.
And, when I got my license, I can remember Mum give me a hug. I'd go in the car and I'd say, Mum, I'm going to go. And she'd be hugging me. And I'd say, Mum, just another minute. So that was the sort of person that my mum was, but had
Which
no
is
money.
a different type of wealth, though. Like there's plenty of families that have got plenty of money and they haven't got any of that stuff. Yeah.
And we appreciated that. But I told you the story. I remember going to school, primary school, and walking home from school and saying, Mum, can I get a can of Fanta? And she said she didn't have the money.
Mm.
And I said, Mum, it's 25 cents. She said, you look in my purse, and she opened it up. I don't have 25 cents. So she couldn't buy a can of Fanta. And me and Lindsay were talking about stories growing up once, and I told him about that story, and he told me his story of a similar situation where he didn't have money for certain things even after he first got married. And so he said to me, your mum did you a favour by not buying you that can of Fanta. And that's how Lindsay thinks about it, right? And when you really think about it, you go, well, yeah, it was a situation that you had. But it made me think, firstly, I was unhealthy, so I had to work on my health because I couldn't breathe. Asthma as a kid was terrible.
Yeah.
And I'd go out with my cousins, and we're all mates, and I'd start laughing at something and having asthma, and I'd get all down the sides. I'd start feeling it coming on, and I wouldn't be breathing and coughing, and it was really bad.
Yeah.
And so, but I worked on that, and my dad helped me with that. Changed my diet when I was a kid, got me off milk. I used to drink a lot of milk, and that would cause congestion. So I got off milk, started on vitamins. Again, he didn't have a lot of money, but he bought me vitamins, and started exercising. And I found I got stronger, my asthma improved, and I got better, and I started playing junior footy.
Yep.
And then when I was 11, I got a paper round delivering papers because I figured if I can earn that money, it wasn't much. I think it was a couple of bucks a week or something back then. I could buy my own can of Fanta, right?
Yeah.
So that was the favour that she did in Lindsay's mind, and it taught me, okay, you work, then you get money, and then you can buy stuff.
It's a very pivotal moment in someone's life.
Look, I didn't want to be in the situation that my parents were in, and I always said I've got to work hard because I just don't want to be like that. And I got a job working because actually my grandmother. I know I'm going a bit long here, but my grandmother bought an organ, an electronic organ, for herself. And again, mum's in hospital. We're at Nan's, nothing to do, and she had this organ with the Easy Play book on it. So I decided to have a go. And then decided to teach myself. So they had what was called a keyboard guide that would sit on the keys and tell you what the keys were. It'd say C on the music and C on the keyboard. So I started working out that's how you play it. And actually, for some reason, within a short period of time, I was actually pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And I was playing songs. People would come in and go, what was that? Played what the book said, right? So that's how I got into music from my grandmother buying that organ. And some years later, we went to the Melbourne show, and my parents had saved up money for a long time to take us to the show. It was a big deal for us, and we got $5 each. They'd saved up to buy show bags. And they had an organ stand there from Brashes was selling these organs, and just went and had a look. And there was a little Kauai organ, it was about $600. So I sat down and I played the organ there. And the bloke come up and said, oh, how long you been learning? And I don't learn. He goes, where do you play that? I said, I just taught myself off some books at my grandma's house. And Dad goes, no, he's never had a lesson. And this bloke said, play me something else. Played another thing by memory, playing the organ. You've had lessons. I said, no, I haven't had any lessons, right? He said, has he got an organ at home? I said, no, he plays his grandmother's. The bloke said, I'll tell you what, that organ there, $695. I'll do it for you for $600. If you buy it for him, I'll teach him for free. So Mum and Dad said, look, let's have a think about it. So we walked around the show, and Dad comes up to me and goes, how much money did your mum give you for show bags? I said, $5. He said, you give me that $5, you don't buy no show bags, I'll buy the organ. So I said, here's me $5.
Yeah.
Right? So we went back there. Dad bought the organ. The guy's name was Keith Searle.
Mm-hmm.
He became my organ teacher forever.
No,
the whole time. And funnily enough, and I went in organ competitions. There's another story behind this. I know I'm full of stories, right? But I actually tell this story to people because I think it's a really good one, but I don't know if I've got time. But
you got all the time in the world. It's your time.
So people listening to this will be bored out of their mind by now, maybe. But so I went in the organ competitions, and Keith would teach me. And Keith ended up moving from Diamond Creek. So Dad would drive me to Diamond Creek each Saturday for a lesson, and then he moved to Geelong, and we didn't know what to do. We didn't have a teacher. But Dad said, well, I'll take you down Geelong every now and then and see if you can have a lesson. And we became every couple of weeks. Dad would drive me to Geelong.
Far out.
No money. And Dad said to me one day, you know, when I bought you that organ, that was
I had no idea I'd be driving to Geelong every week.
Well, but he said, when I bought you that organ, I wanted you to take it seriously. And after your mum said, we can't afford it. And he said, well, I'm going to buy it for him. And he said, after I bought you that organ, I had like $12 in my bank account left. So that was a commitment from them that, that set me up.
And just to, like most kids these days, if you were to say to them, yeah, I'll buy the piano, you give me the $5 back, you don't get no show bags. 90% of those kids aren't going home without show bags. They're not sacrificing that stuff. They'll be like, I just want the show bag. I don't care for the piano. Yeah,
no, I don't know what made me think about it. But then, as I said, I went in the organ competitions, and fast forward years later, I went in a competition and I got an honourable mention. I went in another competition, third prize. And the short version of this story is I said, I'm going to this competition, which was a big one at the time, was Geelong or Stedford. And these competitions had hundreds of kids going in. If you didn't get your entry in on time, you wouldn't get in because they were huge, right? And everyone was having a go at it back then. And it was something that if you played the organ, Brashes were surviving on organ sales. Every house in the country just about had an organ, and the kids would learn on them, back in the day. So one other guy that I work with who's still a mate of mine today, shout out to Shane Rabo if he sees this, but Shane Shane's still a good mate. He works for another company now, and done very well for himself. We decided let's go for this competition, and we will put a lot of work in and practice for it, because we never won a competition. I'd never won one, and I always thought maybe just I'm not good enough, right? So for this competition, we decided that we would put in and work together. So there was a music school that we were just working at part-time, had a couple of students, and we asked them if we could practice there. So we'd go up there and practice. And so we'd practice an hour together. He'd go in one room, I'd go in there, we'd do an hour practice, go home, do half an hour practice. And so I was saying to myself, I'm going to give this competition a real crack. So I practiced at least an hour and a half every day. I go to the competition. Guess where I come?
I'm going to say first.
No.
No.
Second.
Yeah.
Second. Got second prize, right? So the first prize winner was a bloke, again, still a friend of mine today. I don't know if you know Paul Noble, but he's...
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. Paul was Casio for a while. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I said to Paul, he won. Paul would win all the competitions. He'd just keep winning, and I couldn't beat him. Most of the time we were in different age groups, but he'd win and I'd come second, third, never won. And I went up to him and said, well done, mate, you won. Good on you. I said, I think I'm probably just not good enough at this point in what I do to be first prize. You know, I said I put a lot of work in on this occasion to go in this competition. You know, I never did a day that I didn't do an hour practice, and sometimes an hour and a half. A couple of days I even did 2 hours practice, but I put in a lot of work for this, and I'd come second. He goes, how much did you practice? Told you, hour and a half, 2 hours. And you come second? Yeah. He goes, you know how much I practice? I said, no. He goes, I set my alarm clock first thing in the morning for 6. I do 2 hours by 8 o'clock. I come home for lunch, I do half an hour practice. When I get home from school, I do 2 hours practice. I have my lunch, my dinner, and then I do 2 hours practice. If I'm not doing 6 hours a day, I don't think I've even practiced.
Yeah, wow.
I'm happy with
I'm
second.
not too bad.
I'm happy with second, right? But another one of these things of learning a lesson. Going back to Lindsay, you can't be half pregnant. An hour and a half a day, whatever you're doing. I was a kid, thought that was enough. That's not enough.
Yeah.
You got to be dedicated. You got to put everything into it. So when we talk about me going for the world record, I remember those lessons. So I put in a proposal to Guinness to go for that world record, and I had to fill all the paperwork out. They came back with an acceptance of the attempt.
Yep.
And I was stuck. I was practicing these diamond push-ups. I was stuck on 80 to 85 for about 3 months. I couldn't really get over 85, and I thought, I'm probably not going to get there. Then I thought, I'm just not working hard enough. And my son's a personal trainer, Nick, now. He's got Knock Fitness, which is he's doing really well with that. He's built himself up. I don't know if you saw the photo on Facebook, but he's done really well. He looks really, really good. So I met with him, said, look, what do you reckon, mate? I've got to get above 85. He said, what are you eating, Dad? I said, well, I don't want to be
Beer?
No, I don't want to be mean to people that are in certain industries, but I was having soy lattes and all that. He said, Dad, get off the soy milk for now. I was having a few reds at night here and there, get off the alcohol. You got to train harder. So I go, right, no half measures here. Off the alcohol, off the soy milk. Changing my training. I was starting to do training hard. I'd get up in the morning, do my push-ups, then I'd do bench press, then I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd go to the gym. I was doing maybe 45 minutes in the gym, and I was doing chin-ups with a 10-kilogram vest on, and I was getting up to, even now, I'm still training. I'm still training because that keeps my asthma at bay. It keeps me fit. I'm 59 this month. When you get to that age, you become an old man pretty quickly if you're not training. That's the way I see it.
And that's always, there's so much stuff about that where you get old. If you let yourself get old physically, you have to keep active.
So even now I'm doing, my starting point was 15 chin-ups with 10-kilogram vest, and my warm-up is 20 chin-ups without the vest. So, and not a lot of people can do that, but you can probably if you practice, but you got to work hard at it, right? So I'll do that. And then I'll do 10 laps of the pool. Then I'll jump in the sauna, and I'll do that every couple of days. And I did that. And then I went with the trainer at the Coburg Leisure Centre where I was doing some training. And he gave me some stretching exercises and some other things to do. And he said, let's have a crack at it, see how many you can do now. Because I hadn't changed from changing that strategy. I was still stuck with that 80, 85. And I took some time off doing that training to do the other training to see how I'd go. And I got on the floor and I did. So with the diamond push-ups, it's like that. You have to arms straight and you come down to a 90-degree angle. You don't have to go to the floor. Some people looked at my attempt and go, oh, he doesn't go to the floor. You don't go to the floor.
You can barely get back up if you go to the floor with a diamond.
Well, even that, you could have a rest, couldn't you? When you go to the floor, you're not allowed to stop for more than, if you stop for 2 seconds, like you go 1, 2, you're out.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's consecutive.
Yep.
There's no stopping, and you come to 90 degrees.
Yep.
And then back up again. So I got on the floor and had a crack, and I got to 98. I surprised myself. I gone, well, I was stuck on 85, got to 98. So changing those strategies, changing the diet, training a bit harder, all of a sudden I'm getting closer. So that's when we set a date, and that gave me another couple of months to work hard to get to that 101. But when you're doing these things, when you get to a point where you can't do any more and you get up, you go, well, there's nothing you can do. It's not mind. It's a combination of mind, of course, from the start. But at that point, you spent. So we get to 98. It's a big gap between 98 and even 102, But that's what I did. And remembering all of those things back in the day, can't be half pregnant, put in, hour and a half's not good enough. If you're going to do it, put everything you can into it.
Yeah.
It'll be business, personal, world record attempt. Doesn't have to be a world record attempt. I got people that I know that aren't healthy and that are not that well and complain about being unwell, but don't do anything about it. So I say, do something about it. It doesn't matter if you do 5 minutes or 10 minutes if you're doing nothing. Do one push-up, do one squat, do what you're capable of, and then do that as long as you're comfortable with it until the next week, add to it. Do 2, do 3, and you will feel better, I promise you, if you put in the effort. But you don't have to just accept the situation.
And every journey starts with the first step. If you don't take the first step, you're going nowhere. And I think that's the biggest struggle for a lot of people is that you've got to really bite in and take the first step, and then you got to keep working. You just got to keep on working.
Exactly.
Mark, I reckon that's us.
Mate, it's been great speaking with you. I hope I didn't prattle on for too long. Sometimes I get started and...
I feel like we're going to have to do an episode 2, though. I feel like we've got plenty more to talk about. But, man, I can't thank you enough. It's been awesome.
No, mate, you too. Yeah, look, I look at what you do and, I congratulate you. You've done well for yourself, mate. Everything you do to a level. Not everyone does it. And really happy that you asked me to come along today and proud to be associated with your good self.
Thank you, buddy.
And let's see if anyone takes any notice of it and would like us to do number 2, happy to come
We'll
back.
do number 2 regardless of what they think. But thank you, buddy. Love it. Ta.